everyone. Welcome and thanks for coming. I'm so honored to be invited to Jill's community. And like she said in the intro, when we met, I think we kind of figured out very quickly that we had this, connection around using your nature and the connection of nature to our own bodies, our own body wisdom. I think we can probably all attest to the fact that trying to find the perfect way to eat healthy is a constant challenge and something that we have to adapt to. And there's always new information, new advice, different philosophies, different things that we're just constantly having to learn and adapt to, right? So, I have a presentation and I'm going to do this live presentation, but I also really want to, get a chance to hear from you guys and, even recognize, maybe we can just take a couple minutes before we even get started, like what drew you to this presentation? What is it about flavor and taste? What made you curious enough to really want to come to this workshop? I would love to know. If we could just maybe do a little popcorn style before I go ahead and get started. That'll help me a little bit to understand what people are wanting or expecting from this. So you can just come off mute if anyone has something they want to share. I would love to hear it.
Hi, I guess I can go first. Hi, I'm Val. And I'm kind of a creature of habit. I eat a lot of the same things like every day. And I'm always looking for new and exciting ways to kind of change those things up, just a little bit. Because like I said, I do like certain foods each day. It's just my way of dealing with things, I guess, and my diet. But if you could add some additional flavor or change those flavors up a bit, I think would go a long way to add the variety to my normalcy, I guess you could say.
I love it. I love it. And you're going to, hopefully after this talk and presentation, you're going to buy into that big time. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Mary, and I am new to Jill's group and so happy to be here. I, like Val, I think once, and to kind of piggyback on that, I think once you hit upon those things that are going to provide all the protein you need, the fiber you need, and you're kind of guaranteed the proper nutritional balance with these certain things, you do tend to become a creature of habit, because then there's not a lot of thought associated with choosing something to eat, right? You always know what it's going to be. But again, variety is what I'm looking for, because we don't want to get bored with it. We want to find new and exciting ways to be nutritious, to be healthy.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Mary.
I'm Linda. I'm exactly the opposite. I like as many different kinds of foods as possible. I'm always looking for interesting flavors. I could eat Asian food just about every day of the week, but I also love Italian. I recently, it's been Passover. I've been eating too much of that kind of food. But generally speaking, I don't like to eat the same thing frequently. I like to keep moving it around from ethnic group to ethnic group, basically.
I got you. That is me too. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm looking at food as a healing modality. So, I'm an acupuncturist and totally into Ayurveda. And so I know like the 5 elements as far as flavors for health reasons, for herbal formulas, but I'm looking to learn a lot more about it from just food and how it's really healing. Yeah.
I love that. And, if at any point during the conversation you can contribute something that maybe correlates to what I'm saying in the line of Ayurvedic and flavors, because that is one modality that I know they use flavors as part of the healing process. And like you said, it is typically kind of medicinal or not even medicinal, herbal focused, right? And there's a lot of focus on the flavors when it comes to herbs and the energetics of it and stuff. And that is it's a perfect complement for, this concept of just looking at flavor, like why do we have taste buds kind of a thing. So awesome. Thanks, Connie. Anyone else?
I know that I think that with Ayurveda, from what I remember, they like to use the 5 flavors at each meal.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're diving into that 5 flavors. Actually, in Ayurveda and Chinese, it depends on who you talk to. Sometimes they talk about 6 flavors. They actually bring in like a little bit of a different element, but all relevant and part of, how this conversation can kind of get taken to a next level. I'm kind of in this presentation that I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it down to the basics, because assuming most people don't have, a lot of knowledge of, even like if you're not doing Ayurveda, you probably haven't even really thought about this. Really, it's not a complex concept that I'm going to introduce here. You guys are going to be like, what? Is that simple? It's one of those things that's simple and not necessarily easy. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I do have a presentation, and if the technology gods are with us, let's see how it goes. All right. You guys see that? Wait a minute. Hold, please. Okay, how we doing? Can you guys see my?
Good. Yes, we could.
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect. Okay, so here we are. My business is called the Flavor Remedy because I see flavor as the remedy for lots of things. The simplest of which, of course, is boring food. So a little bit about me. As Jill mentioned, all right, come on now, technology, you need to work with me. Okay, here we are. Want to eat healthy, focus on flavor. This is Jill's community, as she mentioned. So honored to be here, and I really do think that focusing on flavor can help us to not only be more in touch with our own bodies, but also kind of take the concepts that we've been taught from the outside in, from people that have studied nutrition, that have studied health and how our human bodies work, and we can almost tie these things together. It's not like A or B thing. It's really this kind of sacred third, I call it, option of understanding our own bodies and nature, along with this wisdom and knowledge that we have gained over the years of understanding how our bodies work through nutrition. And you guys, I didn't actually fix all of my slides. It says legendaryspice.com. If you go to legendaryspice.com, you will still come up with the Flavor Remedy. But that's a little bit of my history. So here's me. Instead of giving you a whole bunch of words and credentials, I just threw up an artistic collage because I'm also enjoy art. That's my bear on the painting, on the slide. It's also right behind me here. As Jill mentioned, I also just recently did a TEDx talk, and that was quite the experience. So honored to be able to do it. And also it was very, very challenging for lots and lots of reasons. And some of which you may appreciate on this call, being part of Jill's community, is I was challenged in that on things that I could and couldn't say. And one of the red flags on TEDx was that I wasn't allowed to say the term food is medicine, which was a very interesting journey. And I get it, and they have their platform and they have their, kind of guidelines that they want people to follow. And I can see how people can, maybe abuse that term, but it was a last minute call for me, and I had to rewrite my TEDx talk basically 2 weeks before I had to go on stage. So everyone else had, months of prep, and I was kind of scrambling last minute. However, I did it, and I'm happy with it. I do actually refer people to my TED Talk when I introduce myself, and I want to let people know what the concept is. And so it was in the end a great experience. I also have a podcast called Let's Talk Taste with Sherry, Saving the Earth One Flavor at a Time. It is Earth Day this week, which is pretty exciting for me and very perfectly timed for the work that I do, because I actually see that our taste buds do connect us to the planet through the food that we eat. And that's part of where I see this message going as an even bigger benefit than people increasing their health, which I don't know how there's much of a more benefit than that, except for the fact that there's correlating information that is coming out through technology that shows that nutrients and flavor truly are affiliated with each other when they're grown and raised into our food. So as flavor increases, nutrients increase, and when nutrients increase, it comes from healthier soils. So ultimately, our taste buds are crying for us to fix the soils that we're growing our food in. So that's kind of the big arc and the big goal that I always have. But in this particular presentation, we're really going to focus on, not so much the technicalities of that. I like to mention it because it is an effect of choosing the right foods, flavorful foods. But today we're going to focus on you guys and how we can understand these flavors. I'm also an author. I'm a gardener. That logo up in the right-hand corner is Oncobites. That is a company that I am a product development person for. We develop nutritious bites for cancer patients. So lots and lots of variety on my collage of things. But we are here for Jill's community. Do you guys just love Jill? I love, we already talked about, our connections and how we have this commonality around working with your nature. But I want you guys to think for a second. And if you don't know Jill well, maybe you have another nutritionist or another, you've done your own studies or you have information around eating healthy, right? We've all been on a journey of some sort to understand, again, from the outside in, what am I doing? What do I need to do to support my body? Whether my goal is better health, whether my goal is healing or weight loss or there's so many things we can focus on now. I mean, we get tested for cholesterol and blood sugar and all the things, right? All this wonderful technology that we have to understand if our bodies are functioning properly, right? But if you think about it, it's a lot of information from the outside in. So what would happen if Jill disappeared? What would you do? I'd be so sad. But what would we do if we didn't have somebody telling us what to eat? What would we do if everything we've been told is the right way to eat, or the latest fad, or the next best thing in the healthy world just disappeared? Think about this. What are you born with? What innate tools do you have to detect nutrition or to analyze nutrition or to decide what's good for you? We have to be born with it, right? It's a survival tactic. It's something that we need to survive. What do you have? Anyone want to jump in with any kind of ideas or answers?
Our senses.
Senses, absolutely.
Yeah, like taste, how things taste.
Yes, how things taste. Why do you have a sense of taste?
I think it's how you feel after you eat something. Like you can tell if you have sugar early. If I have sugar early in the day, I have like a hole in my stomach all day. Like I am trying to fill that hole all day.
Yeah. Yep. These
and
are
I
all
think the heat of things like ginger and things that kind of help with the metabolism and kind of warm up your body or help the respiratory system, such as spicy foods, or help clear out the respiratory system, or the heart with garlic, right?
absolutely. And that's like next level stuff that you're talking about. And I love it. I love that you have that awareness, and you're right. Like, cause that's kind of the energetics of food, right? That goes into how you feel in our bodies. And this is what I talk to people about a lot, because typically when I bring up this idea of, do you trust your sense of taste as the guide for nutrition? you can imagine the looks that I get, right? Now, depending upon where you are on your food journey and how committed you are to really, consuming whole foods or, we all have choices that we have to make. And it's interesting to hear the levels of understanding, and that those are great awarenesses. The energetics of ginger warming your body and the awareness of garlic and how things, feel in your body. That's the next step. That's what I tell people. Like, it goes beyond your taste bud. It's not just what you're tasting. It's also how you feel afterwards, right? So that's really, really, really great input. So a lot of times when I ask this question, why do we have taste buds? And do you think of your taste buds as an ally? Do we think of it as something that we can trust? And a lot of times that's a challenge, right? I mean, we live in a world where if you want an island, blue island breeze flavored something, you can get it, right? So there's a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of different ways that, we're being presented with nutrition through the lens of flavor. So when we talk about the sense of taste as a tool that we're born with, and I must have some slow internet going on here. Pictures are not loading. We're just going to leave it at that. When we talk about our sense of taste as this tool, right? This tool that connects us to food, that connects us to flavor, there's an important choice that we have to make when it comes to choosing flavors. And it also needs to come with an understanding of what these 5 categories of flavor are. So this is where I kind of get down to the basics. And this is where, and I'm sorry, I can't see everybody's face, so I don't know who it was who mentioned using your senses. The tasting experience itself is multisensory. As a matter of fact, when we eat, it's one of the only times that we experience all 5 of our senses at one time. Right? So we're tasting, we're smelling, we're getting textures, we can feel, we can hear crunch, everything is happening. All 5 senses are engaged, right? Which is why I had this aha moment once when I was working in a restaurant, trying to figure out, why am I so passionate about food? And I was like, oh my God, all 5 senses at one time, right? Like and if all of our senses, all of these innate tools that we have are engaged in one time, to me, that tells me that this is one of the most powerful, instinctual moments that we can experience. So when I got really curious about, well, why do we have our sense of taste anyway? I started really diving into the 5 flavors. So sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami are what I call the 5 categories of flavor. And if you think about it, and if you think about your taste buds as being the innate tool that we are given to distinguish flavors and to determine nutrients, it just makes sense that these categories of flavor should be talking to us, right? They should be telling us something about nutrition. And when you're getting these flavors from whole foods, I call them living flavors, flavors from life, flavors that are being grown and raised into our food instead of manufactured and added, then there is this correlation. There should be a correlation of flavor and nutrients. So we're going to just kind of real quick run through what these categories of flavor are and what they mean, what they should support from. Oops, I went too many. Back it up here. Oh, you jumped way ahead on me, slide. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Okay, stop, freeze. Can you see the sweet slide? Okay, good. All right, so sweet and salty, as we know, and as was already mentioned this morning, right? When you have sugar in the morning, you feel like you're just chasing that hole all day long. Sweet and salty are the 2 categories of flavor that I call the most emotionally charged, right? They are the flavors that we lean into, that we are most familiar with, that if something doesn't taste good, right? If we suspect that something doesn't, or if we taste something we don't like the taste of it, sweet and salty are almost the immediate go-tos. Well, it needs more salt, or it's not sweet enough, or if anyone's been to Europe and you've tasted the level of sweetness in pastries in Europe versus the level of sweetness in pastries here in the United States, it's unbelievable how we have created this demand for this high level of sweetness. So it becomes this, when you're trying to eat healthy, it almost becomes this thing that we're completely avoiding. Some people take it to extremes that they won't even consume anything that has a calorie or a carb or anything around that, right? So sweetness has really gotten this, it's kind of tipped the scales on the evil side, that we don't even feel like we can. Sometimes we feel like we're just feel guilty if you eat something sweet, or you feel like completely empty. Like you said, you're chasing this need for sugar in your body. And so many different circumstances have led to us being in this condition of not trusting sweet as a flavor that is supporting us, right? But the reality is that flavor of sweetness, if we could jump back to caveman days when all there was food that was grown, and you're, wandering around and you're finding food that's sweet, it's important. It's meant to be an energy support. It's literally supposed to be caloric. It's calories that provide us with energy, and it's calories that keep us going. So sweet flavors, the category of sweetness alone is really the only category that's required for us to survive. So we have to stop demonizing sweet as an experience and start really diving into the difference in these sweetnesses that we're experiencing, and understanding them from a holistic and a nature point of view. Because here's another thing about sweetness that's different in nature versus processed foods. The sweetness never comes alone in nature. It's always packaged with other flavors. And as you're going to learn, since each of these categories of flavor carry different nutrients, they all have a job. And they work way better when they come together, like they do in nature. So that's sweet. Come on, good melody. All right, it's going too far again. Okay, salty. So here we go to the next one, right? So salty is the next emotionally charged flavor. No, and I'm not saying, please, I probably should make this statement. When it comes to nutrition advice, dietary advice, it's not my gig. I know that sounds crazy. You guys are like, well, why am I even here? Flavor as a guideline for nutrients is a concept that I think we need to all get curious about and start asking these questions. So what I'm bringing in is an awareness around how I believe we connect to flavor, and how I think we can benefit from flavor. And the reason I'm saying this is because I'm sitting here promoting salty and sweet as flavors, as they come from nature, as they're supposed to be backed by nutrients. But if you've been given advice to avoid, salt specifically, I'm not telling you to override that. I'm not trying to convince you that you're wrong, but I am going to point out how things have changed, how salt has changed, how sugar has changed, how sweet things have become concentrated. And it's through that concentration and this elimination of the whole food process that these flavors have become more detrimental. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So when it comes to salty flavors, salt, when it comes from natural sources of the earth, like actually dehydrated, like sea salt, right? And pictured here is pink Himalayan salt. These salts are not just sodium and chloride. They are combinations of minerals and lots of other things. And even salt just in of itself is supportive of the systems in our body. And again, it's that when it gets out of balance, if you have heart conditions and if you have issues or blood pressure and things that are really creating a condition where salt is contributing, I'm not telling you that a mineral salt is going to be okay, right? This is just a reflection on salt as it comes from nature. Processed white iodized bleach salt removes all of this. It makes it easier for us to pour. It makes it drier. It's less clunky. It's really a creation of convenience that still gives us kind of that flavor sensation. But salt in general is meant to be full of minerals, functional support, and it also helps with your hydration. So, ask any athlete who is training and eating and running and sweating to eliminate salt from your diet, and you're going to have one sick athlete. It's part of what helps our bodies function. Okay. The next flavor is bitter. Now, bitter is honestly my favorite flavor. I think bitter can save the world. Bitter is misunderstood. It's got all these like personality traits that people don't like it. There's all kinds of, well, why is she so bitter, right? Like we have so many like feelings that we think of when it comes to bitter. And, there's, to be completely transparent, there's some good reason for it. I mean, a lot of times when you speak to people, I actually listened to a talk one time with a woman who did a presentation in front of Google employees about flavor. And when she brought up bitter, she said, well, bitter is poison. And I was like, what? So people in the food industry have a pretty strong mindset and a huge awareness around the fact that we don't necessarily lean into bitter as humans. Because again, back in those caveman days when you're wandering around eating stuff and tasting it and smelling it to try to determine if it's good for you, yes, bitter, poisonous plants are bitter. But here's the difference here. So bitter flavors, if you think about, I always say, think about the term a bitter pill to swallow. So if you think of bitter like medicine, too much or the wrong medicine can be poison. But in the right levels, it's healing you. It's beneficial. It's the thing that detoxifies your body. Bitter flavors are literally what antioxidants are. We know antioxidants, we know terms, right? So here's another example of where these outside terms that we've been given that are good for us, antioxidants, terpenes, flavonoids, a lot of times this is kind of clumped into the micros category, micros and macros. These are all things that are bitter. And our food, especially processed food, they make it a point to remove bitter from the food. And this is for like twofold from the point of a food manufacturing company that wants somebody to keep coming back and eating their food. When you remove bitter, it also turns off the switch for satiation. So you don't feel satisfied if you don't have bitter. Going back to the sweet thing, when you have sweet from nature, there's almost always bitter packaged with it. So it's an indication to your body like, oh, I've got enough of this, medicine. So I feel full. I feel satisfied. I don't need more, like you would, like the experience that you would get when you're eating, say, a cookie or a donut or something that is purely processed food that eliminates all these other flavors and categories of nutrients. So suddenly you're eating and eating and eating and never getting that feeling of feeling full. So bitter flavors, Connie mentioned a little bit in the beginning about Ayurvedic and how from an herbal standpoint, there's a lot of studies around the true flavors of these foods. And bitter is the most highly medicinal and antimicrobial flavor there is. Basically, we all need more bitter in our life. And without even knowing it, you're probably already consuming bitter and not thinking about it, because the most popular bitter flavor, does anybody have any thoughts on a bitter flavor that you're probably consuming on a regular basis?
Coffee?
Coffee. Yep, coffee and tea. And if you think about what coffee does for you in the mornings, gets things moving, gets things eliminating, it's that bitter flavor that stimulates the bile in your liver and gets things moving and helps eliminate waste from your body. So that's a perfect example. Thank you. Okay. Next is sour. Sour and bitter sometimes get confused when people aren't really focused on flavors. You know, and I usually use the example, sour is the fruit of the lemon and bitter is the rind of the lemon. So it's sour is what brings that puckering, you know, that feeling in your mouth where you instantly have saliva coming in. And that indication right alone is telling you everything that sour is doing for you. So as soon as that sour hits your tongue and your saliva starts the process, what is saliva there for?
Swallow.
I'm sorry?
To swallow?
It helps you swallow. Yep. But what is it the first step in?
Digestion.
First step in digestion. Yep. It's starting the process of breaking down your foods. So sour foods, and you can think about this. So it definitely enhances flavor. It brightens something up. So if you're eating something and it tastes flat, or all you taste is you know, something like it seems flavorless, or it's just sweet, sour is the perfect enhancement to a plate to help brighten it up and make it more interesting. If you've ever been served like a lemon or lime wedge along with your street tacos, you know, it changes the whole dynamic of your food. And it's also digestive support, and it indicates the presence of acidity. So I'm wondering, and I want to make sure I'm watching the time here. I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts on sour foods that you have been told support digestion.
Yogurt.
Yogurt, yes, thank you. Any others?
Tea with lemon after a meal.
Tea with lemon.
Apple cider vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar.
Fermentation.
Fermentation. Yes, you guys are on it, man. This is like a no-brainer for you. Yes, all of these things. And what is the indicator in most of those things that we believe helps us in the digestive
Sour
process?
and it has acid.
Sour has acid. The other thing is probiotics.
Probiotics.
So it's actually the probiotics. It's the process of breaking down the food. And I mean, it's kind of, if you think about it, it's that bacteria that's pre-digesting that stuff and causing that fermentation to happen, that's creating the different acids that make it taste sour. I think fermentation process is so fascinating because it's just food and salt, right? It's pretty cool. I love it. Has anyone made fermented foods before? I can't see everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool.
Sherry, I just wrote in the chat, sourdough bread.
Yes, sourdough bread is another one. It's the same process,
with
right?
Sour.
It's a cultured, right? That's another cultured product. And sourdough bread, like I know some people that are gluten-free that can eat sourdough bread because it's got that extra bacteria, and yeah, and it's completely the same process. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm gonna try to speed this up a little bit. Sorry, no, there we go. Umami. Okay, so umami is a flavor that some people don't have any idea what it is. Some people are very misguided by this flavor. They think it has strictly to do with Asian food because now it's showing up as kind of trendy menu items in different Asian food. Umami is actually the flavor of protein. So, but what's crazy about umami is that when it was discovered as a flavor, as something that we experience on our taste buds and actually documented as such, at the same exact time, the scientist that was a Japanese scientist was discovering it, was also creating MSG at the exact same time. So it's fascinating because it almost became like the definition of umami flavor. But what the true heart of the umami flavor that we experience, and you can think of umami as being, some people call it meaty, some people call it savory. It's like, what it does is it coats your tongue. It coats your tongue with this kind of lingering flavor that really leaves you almost wanting more. It's just, it's satisfying, and it's delicious. So it indicates, amino acids, which are strengthening and helps to build, we're very focused on protein right now in the world of health and healing and weight loss and all these things, but we're not necessarily focused on the fact that it tastes like umami. So we're going to go into that a little bit in a couple slides here, but the flavor of umami is, you can find it not just in meat, it's in nuts, it's in seeds, it's in eggs, it's in dairy, it's in, it's a flavor that we really enjoy. And monosodium glutamate is the manufactured version of flavor of umami. And it's not just listed as MSG and ingredients anymore. It is hidden everywhere. And again, this is because the food industry knows, even though we might not know what it means, we might not have ever heard the word before, they know that we lean into it big time. And I am a victim of umami flavor all the time when it comes to snacks. And now it shows up as hydrolyzed yeast. There's so many different names that it falls under now. Unfortunately, MSG is hidden in a lot of things. Okay, so how do you trust your sense of taste again? It's really a matter of what we talked about from the very beginning. It's this idea, I'm gonna go back a slide because this is a big quote. It's this idea that we really need to be focused on flavors that are grown and raised into our food. And I could spend a whole nother hour talking about how our food has changed, why our food is changed, and why I'm so passionate about, like I said in the beginning, it connecting us back to healing the planet. We have depleted the soils in our lands where we're growing food. And this is really why flavor manufacturing has come into light. It's why it exists, because we've gone down this road of changing the quality standard of our food to be yield and shelf life as opposed to flavor and nutrients. And in the past, up until very recently, we couldn't even correlate the flavor and nutrient correlation. But now that that's coming to the surface, it's going to be really interesting to see how the quality standard of food changes, of food that's grown and raised. But basically what it's left us with is flavorless broccoli, right? We have flavorless food, we have flavorless chicken, we have things that are being grown for different reasons outside of flavor and nutrients. And therefore the flavor industry knows we choose flavor. So all this flavor is being created and masking what we're calling healthy and nutrients. So this is a quote from one of my favorite books, The Dorito Effect. It's right here. I would bring it and show it to you. It's full of Post-its. It's a book that just blew my mind. And now he has another book called The End of Craving. But this quote from Mark Schatzker: "Nature endowed us with our most sophisticated bodily system, because it performed the body's most essential task, getting important nutrients. By manipulating our richest and most direct source of pleasure, we have warped our relationship with the fuel of our bodies that our bodies require, food. We have taken a system designed to bring our bodies to a state of nutritional completion and turned it against us." So I have chills, like when I read that. This is something that, when I started traveling down the road of, well, why do we have taste buds anyway? And you start realizing that this is an innate tool that we have. This is our body's wisdom, right? And yet, because we haven't really looked at it that way, we as individuals have not chosen to make it a priority, not chosen to recognize it as this thing that is talking to our bodies. We're just allowing taste to be superficial. And because we've done that, and we've been marketed to, and we've been guided to believe that bitter is poison, and we've been, kind of, again, going outside for all this wisdom, the flavor industry is off the charts. And they know that we like flavor. They know that humans choose flavor, and they know that what we lean into, and they know that what we don't like. And it's been a long journey, and one that I hope we can bring back to who we are and what we're born with. So flavor from chemistry versus biology is really where you have to start. So this is just a little example here, and I hope nobody gets offended by this, because it's a very relatable example, and I'm not saying it's a wrong choice. I'm just kind of pointing out what's happening here. So let's take the flavor of chocolate. Let's add a protein level, the amount of a steak. And what do we have? So that's a chocolate shake. That's supposed to be a chocolate protein shake. So what we have here is sweet, right? Which, if you go back to my slides, the purpose of sweet is to be energetic, right? And to be caloric. And then we add protein, which protein has its own flavor of umami. But we're combining these two things and we're using them as meals. And, you know, maybe some of you that are you know, in that category in the beginning, you talked about, well, I figured out what it is that is good for me and that will sustain me and that is nutritious and that I like, you know, and chances are that one of these protein shakes is one of your choices. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, again, because I know what has happened to food and I know how we need these extra nutrients and I know we want to eat things that taste good. So this is something that has shown up as an option for us, but what it also is nutritive mismatch. So this is a phrase in Mark Schatzker's second book called The End of Craving that he really studies. He did this amazing study around taking calorie-free sweetener and doing 3 different drinks with it. And in each drink, he was adjusting the calories. Like one had no calories, but the same. So the flavor of sweetness was the same across all 3. One had no calories, one had what would be the appropriate amount of calories to the level of sweetness. And then the last one had more calories than the level of sweetness. And when they surveyed people and did a scientific study around it, they discovered that our brains can fully recognize the connection between the sweetness and the calories. And the most chosen favorite, like best tasting, was the one where the calories matched the sweetness level. Fascinating stuff, just fascinating stuff. So this idea of nutritive mismatch, once you're aware of it, especially in processed foods, you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see it everywhere. And it mostly comes into play where we sweeten things that are typically not sweet because we like sweet and we don't like bitter, right? So again, it's not like, I'm not saying there's really something wrong with it, but it doesn't correlate to the nature of how our bodies are meant to experience flavor. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. Okay.
Sherry, can you give another, or you're about to, some other examples of that?
Of nutritive mismatch?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's really in anything that's artificially flavored or naturally flavored, you know, you can find it in yogurts, you know, when you have yogurts that have pink flavoring and, you know, hardly any strawberry in it, but it's got that flavor of strawberry, right? So the whole idea of natural flavoring and the way that we have been able to recreate flavor from a level of, it's called, the device is called a gas chromatography. And basically what it does, and this is where our sense of smell comes into play, because our flavor experience is not just our taste buds. I focus on our taste buds because when you close your nose, or if you are an anosmic, if you know, hopefully this hasn't happened to you, but if you went through COVID and you lost your sense of smell and it never came back, without your sense of smell, you can actually still taste these categories of flavor. And if you're to eat a real strawberry versus a strawberry yogurt that's been flavored with natural strawberry flavoring, it's a different experience, because a real strawberry has the basic 5 categories. You can still taste the categories of flavor. It doesn't feel the same, but it's the nuances of smell that lets you identify the difference between a grape and a strawberry. So everything that's recreated from a gas chromatography standpoint is really pointing to your nose. It's not creating the same sensation of flavor. So again, because we've kind of like not given it reverence and we're not really paying attention to what a real strawberry is from a flavor experience versus, you know, strawberry flavoring. So anything that has any kind of fruit flavoring is going to give you that nutritive mismatch. Anything that is going to be a diet soda, you know, is 0-calorie soda. So you're getting sweetness, but you're not getting any calories. It's really everywhere. It's
Sophie asked if she adds stevia to her tea.
yeah. Stevia is one of the ones, honestly, that one is, I haven't navigated stevia completely yet. I know I have tasted the stevia plant. And again, the plant itself does taste sweet, but it also tastes bitter. So my kind of guess theory is that through the process of eliminating or creating that powder, right? It's almost like the same process of creating processed sugar. You're taking a plant in its natural whole state and you're processing it and you're bringing it down to a flavor that we like. So it is really creating that same kind of non-caloric thing. Again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just kind of pointing out that there's this mismatch that happens here when we try to sweeten things that aren't meant to be sweetened.
And Sherry, this is Mary. I've read that regardless of whether it's a 0-calorie sweetener or a full calorie natural sweetener or whatever it is, the body still produces insulin in response to it, regardless of what it is. So we're really not doing any good for our bodies and for the pancreas. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the same. That is similar to studies that I've read as well. And that's a lot of what Mark Chasker talks about in his book, The End of Craving too, is this whole idea of craving and this sweetness that we're consuming because we like sweetness and because we've gotten so used to sweetness that as being the only thing that tastes good, that we keep going there. We keep thinking that it has to be sweet in order to taste good. And that's part of what I bring into play too, is that your taste bud they don't just want sweet, they want the variety. And that's part of what is on this list here, is that, this is, I think, where our bodies compensate over time, right? We keep feeding ourselves these artificial sweeteners. And there's lots of studies around diet sodas, right? And there's lots of studies around how these are not benefiting us like we thought they would when they were created. So just a couple little tips here on how do we trust our sense of taste again. I'm sure Jill talks about slowing down, eating mindfully, really paying attention. And when you have this awareness of flavors, it's another way to think about it, right? Like when you bite into something, what am I tasting? Is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it bitter? It's another kind of focus that you can take when you are eating and trying to consume. And then, in the back of your mind, just keep in mind that what you understand about these flavors and how they're supposed to be supporting your body. Choose flavors that are grown and raised, avoid artificial natural flavors. Natural flavors is just a black hole. They have no requirements to tell you what is in those natural flavors. And like I said, typically it's monosodium glutamate. We used to have this whole big thing about how bad monosodium glutamate is for you. And now it's just become accepted again. It's hidden in things. It doesn't need to be revealed. It's kind of crazy. This is my kind of go-to here. See flavor as a quality standard for meat and produce. We've learned how to look for pretty food. We've learned how to look for food that's not damaged. We've learned how to, pick up a tomato that doesn't have any bruises. We get really picky about these things, but it's not even really giving us real quality. Flavor is the real quality. Compare your grocery store tomato to your backyard or farmer's market tomato, and you'll see the difference. And again, instead of just going in for flavor, which should be enough of a thing, if you think of flavor as also being nutrients, this is what we need to bring our health back. More flavor will bring our health back. Embrace more bitter flavors, vary flavors on your plate. I love that several of you talked about how you wanted different flavors on your plate. Of course you do. This is what human nature wants. In our heads, we know this is healthy for us, but your body wants more. Your body wants variety. You want to be able to understand how to bring these other flavors in and let it be appealing to you. And sometimes it takes a little practice and adjustment, but understanding how they balance each other can really help. Vary flavors on your plate and eat dark chocolate. That's a little, I give you permission to eat dark chocolate because it's bitter, right? So it's that bitter element that really brings the health in, and that's where the antioxidants are, and that's where all the benefits of dark chocolate come into play. So invitation, if this is fascinating to you, if you want to join my community, I'm working on growing things from an industry standpoint, actually, from all across the board. I have big plans for this. But you know what I want to say, you guys, if you don't mind, if you do want to join my community, if you're interested, if you could please put your email in the chat instead of going to my website. This morning I tested my email capture on my website. I have these events today, and oh my God, I don't even think it's working. So.
Sherry, you know what we can do is if anybody who, if you don't want me to give her your email address, tell me, and you could just message me. I mean, you know, send me a chat in the chat right now. People are already putting it in, but I have all the email addresses.
Okay.
So great. I just want to ask you right now, anybody on this call, do you not want to be added to her community?
And I'm not.
And you can message me privately right now if you want, if you feel embarrassed. Don't feel like you have to do this, just if you want.
Thank you, Jill. And then I do have an event coming up as well, and I was gonna I can just drop the link to that in the chat. And that one is working. So at this event, this is actually going to be a virtual event. So no matter where you are, I'm gonna escape out of here, stop this share, but I'll put the link in the chat. Wherever you are, it's going to be virtual. I'm going to be sending information. I don't think I mentioned that part of my journey was actually through spices. And so spices are a big deal. When you're talking about trying a variety, you know, change your variety, have things taste differently, spices can help a lot. And so what I do is I will send out spices that represent each of the 5 flavors for this event. You will get the spices in the mail. And then you will also get a shopping list of things to go shop for some living flavors. And basically what we do is we walk through all this information and we're tasting it as we're learning it. And then we're understanding how to balance the flavors, right? So how do we figure out ways to love bitter? You know, how do these flavors play together?
This is a class you're hosting?
This is a class.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, definitely send me that information and I can share it with everybody again, just so, because that sounds like a really good thing.
Yeah, and
I want to attend. And because I was going to ask you, I know we're out of time and stuff, but about the spicy, you know, because there's all this research around spice, you know, hot spicy food and how beneficial it is for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefits to spices. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I know
you have to jump off, and I would love for you to come back. So you'll come back. That's what we'll do.
I do have time to stay right now if somebody does want to stay. My event is until the afternoon, but I understand if people have to go, and we didn't get to the apple, and I apologize for that. But
we didn't get to the apple.
Yeah, well, we had put a little thing if people wanted to bring an apple, we would do a quick little taste.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so also I just want to mention to people, those who are still here, we are hosting a challenge in May. For current clients or for anybody who wants to join us. So I put the link in, I'll put it in again. So, you know, and that'll be something fun. You can invite a friend to as well. And I also have a call at 1, so I could stay for like one or two more minutes, but then I have to close down the call.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm so honored to be here. And like I said, Jill, thank you for offering to share emails. And like I said, I'm not offended. We all get way too many emails. So if you're interested, love to have you. If not, no issue at all.
Well, it looks like everybody wanted to be included. And I just so you know, I make this smoothie every day, but it's all food. That, you know, it doesn't have protein powder in it. Sometimes it does, but usually it doesn't. And then I eat the meat on the side or the fish on the side because I like the flavor of, you know, I want to eat something. So anyway, I agree with you about the protein shakes. Like they do serve a purpose, but they can really, it's processed. You know, if we keep that in mind, that's the most important thing. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Kim's on for my next call. So
thank you so much. I apologize if I rambled on a little too much. I get a little.
Absolutely not. No, it was very, very good. It was all useful. At least I thought so. I hope everybody else.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love
everyone.
Yeah.